Hey, this is Steve Guttenberg. I'm here with Blackie Pagano in his lair here in New York City, in East Village, actually. And so you call it technical services, but really we should just call you Blackie Pagano.
Sure,
And
yeah, that's my name.
you fix stuff. That's what you do. That's your thing.
I'm a fixer from way back. Yes.
And you started fixing in a recording studio, you were telling me, right?
I did, yeah. I mean, I've always taken things apart since I was little and put them back together. But audio gear, I started fixing in a recording studio in the 80s here in New York City. Yeah, I took an entry-level job as a maintenance engineer. So I was aligning tape machines, doing all the analog stuff. The studio I worked in was a big place in Midtown. They had 2 floors. It was audio for video house mostly. So they had a ton of old gear. It was started in the 1950s. There was lots and lots of tube gear in the place. Pultecs, Fairchild, Altec, Macintosh, you name it, was all in there. So yeah, that's where I got my start.
It was kind of like a trial by fire. Sink or swim?
Yeah, I actually had a real good mentor, a friend of mine by the name of Rick, who was the head engineer there, who was a real brilliant engineer. Between him and I had a student aid job in college in a recording studio, and the head engineer there taught me recording, sound recording and techniques. Right? So yeah, that's where I kind of made my bones, basically.
But you were also a musician, right?
Yes, I started playing guitar at the age of 11. I was given a metal guitar. I had no idea what this guitar was all about. But I lived on the outskirts of Washington, D.C., and I used to go to the folk festival, right? July 4th, Smithsonian Folk Festival. I went to a table and bought the first record that had a picture of a guy playing a metal guitar, right? And it turned out the guitar was National Steel.
Whoa!
Right? And the guy was Booker White. Right? So, yeah. So I was like, oh, so that's what this crazy instrument's for. It's for playing slide, right? With that really sort of metallic, loud sound that they make.
And you got sort of good?
Got pretty good on it. Yeah, I can play a little bit,
Wow.
I'm still at it. I don't practice a lot, but I have fun with it. And I still play resophonic guitars and electrics and whatever. I was for a while a professional musician. I did work as a musician in the 80s. Yeah.
So, and you've had, over the years, famous customers. Can you drop any names, or rather not?
Yeah, I've had my share of famous people. I guess, being in New York, you cross paths. And my name gets mentioned here and there. I guess if you look on my website, I have a list of some of the...
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. At blackiepagano.com, there's a list of some of my, higher profile clients.
Cool.
Yeah, but a lot of my customers are the kid next door with his guitar amp, or of course I do a lot of hi-fi stuff.
Right, we're gonna do that one in this video. We're gonna do a separate one on the pro side. Okay. I'm gonna just show a little bit of the stuff here.
Yeah, tube hi-fi. That's a specialty of mine.
Yeah.
I do restorations.
But you also do solid state.
No, I don't really do much solid state work.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, that work doesn't really interest me a lot, and it's not my thing.
Okay.
I somehow bonded with the tubes early on and kind of stuck with that.
It's totally tubular.
Yeah.
So we were talking about this Fisher. It's a Fisher receiver, right?
Yeah, it's a Fisher 500C. This was one of Fisher's fancier efforts. I've repaired tons of these. I have a 400 on my bench right now. Open.
Yeah, I'll get a close-up of that soon.
Got it, yeah. And this one I just restored for a client. This is a beautiful example. It's got all the, these knob caps sometimes fall off.
Yeah.
But this one's got everything in place.
And the wood's pretty.
The wood, yeah. The wood could use a little polish, but I'll let him do that. I refurbed the insides, and it sounds amazing. It's beautiful.
And there's also a Mac up here. A relatively new Mac.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's even here. Why is it here? It's not that old.
I do a fair amount of new tube gear because there's a lot of it out there. Yet they all require maintenance, and this is something that a lot of people don't really understand. Is that most manufacturers recommend yearly maintenance for these pieces to make sure they're in spec. Some of them, this one especially, is really a high-spec precision device, and there are tests and adjustments to be made, and that should be done on a regular basis, cleaning and tightening. Otherwise, the sound will degrade, and that's exactly not the point of having such a great unit.
And that's an MC275?
Yeah, this is the 50th anniversary 275.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It sounds amazing. It actually, this one spec'd out on the bench better than its published specs.
Uh-huh.
Really good.
Cool.
Great stuff.
Anything else we should look at this end? What is that?
This was this is interesting. This is a new piece.
Oh, really?
Although it looks old.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it's made from old parts.
Huh.
And this was made in Japan. There are Japanese builders that put together little integrateds from vintage parts, which are,
that's
these transformers, these Tomoros, are very high quality. So, yeah, they prefer the quality of the older parts, even though you can still get Tomora.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool, right?
I didn't even know that such things existed.
Yeah, actually, this company's still in business and making real good stuff. I just fixed a couple new ones that had all Tomora. In Japan, they continued to improve this transformer technology even after it was pretty much phased out in the United States and everything sort of went solid state. So there are companies in business when we build fancy hi-fi, we use the Japanese stuff because it's the best stuff out there. Yeah.
And what's that?
This is a Scott 299. It's an integrated amp. This client brought me two of these. One of them is a basket case. The other one needs a refurb. So what we're doing is we're making one
good one.
good working unit out of it
nice.
too. Yeah,
that's nice.
Because one has a blown transformer, and you just can't really get that.
Oh, that's
That's
nice.
a part that's not easily replaceable without really hacking up.
Anything else at this end in terms of audio, not pro stuff?
Not pro stuff. There's some older mixers and whatnot. There's a Macintosh Pre here, and here's a Mac 240, vintage Mac 240 that I'm refurbishing for someone.
Well, we'll get back to this in the next video, the pro stuff. So let's get close to the one you're working on, which is a 400, right?
This one had a good amount of work before it came to me, but it's got a few faults, and I'm right now investigating its idiosyncrasies and getting it ironed out.
And the question is to make it as close to original as possible, or to make it better. That's the discussion between you and the customer, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, basically we want them to meet spec, but typically when we replace some of the parts that are past service life, these always have a large number of parts past service life. Electrolytic capacitors in particular, we really have to replace at this age. The ones that we can get now are way better than the ones that they had back in the day. So we do some upgrades in the course of rebuilding them. They're not particularly expensive, and they're much better. So that's what we use when we rebuild these. But yeah, the goal is to get them up to factory spec and even better sounding than new.
And that point-to-point wiring, that's pretty scary in there.
Right?
Yeah. You have to have tiny hands to work in there.
It's tricky because it's high voltages, and it does look like a rat's nest, right?
Yeah.
But actually, this reflects the construction of the day.
And where were these made? Were they made in New York?
Yeah. These are, they were made, I believe, in Long Island.
Huh.
Yeah. This type of construction where they wire directly to the tube sockets from terminal strips is typical for its time. And it's actually good, solid construction. A little scary because we're used to seeing things neatly lined up on a circuit board, but that's not most pieces I see.
So in this time, which is the 50s or 60s, it was pretty much all hand done. All of this work is hand done when it was made. Yeah,
there's no way to do this by machine. Even the ones that are built around boards with lined up components, like typically guitar amps and some hi-fis, they were all wired by hand. And I think most of them were made by women.
Tiny hands.
Yeah. Smaller, more precise, agile hands. They tended to hire women to build these, so most of these were built by women.
But what's amazing to think about, though, looking with hindsight and stuff, is that the prices of these things were considered expensive at the time, but not really. Especially when you look at them, like to buy a hand with point-to-point wiring all done, and it was probably $300, which was a lot of money then.
Yeah, if you convert for inflation, I've never actually done the math on these hi-fis, but I know in the realm of guitar amplifiers, things that were $700 then I think are comparably about $3 or $4 now, somewhere in there. So, yeah, prices. I mean, they were able to pay their workers decently at that time.
Yeah.
I guess most hi-fi is now made in China.
Yeah, I mean, there's still stuff made here. You know, like Rogue Audio in Pennsylvania.
Right, Rogue,
good
and
example.
there's guys in California, right?
Yeah, Shit Audio.
Yeah.
And they make cheap stuff.
Yeah.
Now, it's not made by hand, but it is made mostly with American parts.
It's circuit boards. If you do mass manufacture doing circuit boards, you can bring the prices in line.
Yeah, yeah.
But anything hand-built is very labor-intensive, so you would expect a fair amount of expense there, definitely. So yeah, got a bunch of test equipment, which is interesting. I think people may not know this, but it's actually a great time for test equipment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of computers now, we can get some really good stuff. Audio analyzers. I have tube testing capabilities that are laboratory grade.
Oh,
And
nice.
audio analyzers. This stuff is now 1/10 the price that it was
Interesting.
back in the heyday of industrial America before computerized everything, right? Now, because of global trade and computer connectivity and pooled talent, right? All the facilitated communication between engineers and end users, we got access to a lot of great stuff. I've actually started using digital scopes almost as much as I use analog scopes.
Which one? Which one?
This one's digital. You can't use it for everything. You got to have an analog scope because this is really samples. But the measurements are so precise that as a measuring tool, it's terrific. You know. And then I use an analog scope as well. It's not on right now because it's noisy. So I don't want to disturb a video, but yeah.
Okay.
And sure, curve tracer for tubes. So I do see a lot of so-called new old stock tubes that are actually not really new, reboxed and stuff like that. So I need to be able to really test their performance.
So you think that some new old stock tubes are actually tubes that they're not only old, but they've actually used tubes?
They're pulls. Yeah, many of them are pulls.
Really?
And actually, they've invented a new designation that never existed back in the day, and that's ANOS. And that means
aged new.
almost new old stock,
Okay.
which really just means pulls. And
Okay.
those can vary quite a bit. I see them sold with numbers on the box that don't really correspond to actual classical.
But they can still actually be in really good condition if you know how to test them to make that
absolutely
that judgment.
But they need to be weeded out carefully, and also new manufactured tubes need to be weeded out very carefully because we really don't have the quality control or the materials that we used to have. So,
but the tubes coming out of Europe and Asia and Russia and stuff are good.
yeah, they're good. I wouldn't say they're as good as the old manufacturer, but they're certainly usable, and some of them are quite good. They need to be replaced more often. They need to be weeded out way more carefully. So that's what a lot of this equipment is about, making sure that everything's tight when it goes out of here, so that we have good reliability and great sound.
Okay, I think we're good.
Yeah.
So the name of your business here is blackiepagano.com. That's correct.
Yeah, that's my website, and I just sort of work under my own name. My name is basically my brand.
Okay. And I'll link to it below so people can find you. And I think we said that you work with a lot of local New York stuff, but a lot of New Yorkers, but also they can ship to you.
Yeah, people can ship here. A lot of people drive stuff in from the surrounding area, tri-state area.
All right. Well,
people
any questions, they'll contact you.